Space. The final frontier. These are your adventures as you explore, seeking out new life and civilizations, expanding your borders and exploiting the resources you find, befriending allies, or exterminating the foes that get in your way.
Contact detected entering sector. Configuration unknown. Assessing. Initiating countermeasures.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just realized as I did that in the moment that something isn't quite working. So I'm going to work on that in the background. But until I do that, or while I'm doing that, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Star Trek New Worlds, where we, here with your help, play this online turn-based strategy game and talk about and entertain all the wonderful drama, conflict, and excitement that comes from such a game. Thank you for joining us here live on this Saturday, 11 o'clock Pacific time. If you're catching us on the replay, thank you for taking the time. And if you have been like Tom down below and hit that subscribe button with all the notifications on, then thank you as well. As we are going through today's wonderful live stream, you may hear the odd photon fire. Anybody? And that will indicate that someone has fired a coffee in our general direction. You too can do that by going to that QR code or the link that's pinned in the comments, which is in that bottom corner, coffee.com/New Worlds. I will take a preemptive sip to lubricate my larynx and prepare you for what we are up to today. Oh, yes. So, what is Star Trek New Worlds if it is your first time here? Well, it is a turn-based strategy game that we play here online with you today on YouTube Live. We play this game inspired by the rule set of Federation and Empire as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. The magic of the map that you will see here momentarily is produced through Vassal. All right. So as I am going to poke and do things in the background here, I will share with you that it has been a very exciting, excuse me, a very exciting turn. As you may have seen in the thumbnail and or the title, The Pain Train She Becoming. And for any of you who are familiar with Terry Tate, office linebacker, I encourage you to go check that out, because that essentially is what we're talking about here. Terry Tate, the office linebacker, which is my metaphor for what the Carnivon are doing in this game. But I digress. We'll have to get to there in a moment, just as I'm fixing this technical problem in the background as I'm puttering away here. Looks like she's up and running. I will take this moment to be able to transition us to our galactic news, and then we can talk about what's going on econ-wise in this wonderful, delighting, and exciting world that we have here. Here we go. Welcome to your galactic news. If it's not true, we're not telling. Let's slip the dogs of war. After a steady buildup of ships and supplies, The Carnivon Empire has begun its invasion of Borak space in earnest. A fierce holding action by the Borak forces extracted a heavy price for the destruction of the base in Lima Lima 15. But it is a price the Carnivon can afford. Now that the guard in the northern gate has fallen, it is only a matter of time before the weight of numbers pushes the Borak back to their core systems. Et tu? At the same moment, Carnivon ships were pouring across the border. Assassins were dispatched to the independent world of Homan, where the Borak ambassador and his entire diplomatic team were killed. Is it not working? I feel like I should be able to hear this exciting noise. Homan Honor Guard forces stepped in to defend their honored guests, resulting in a bloodbath that resulted in the death of both attackers and defenders. Homan will be observing a week of mourning in memory of their fallen friends. I see what you did there. The northeast Borak front was another source of bad news. ISC naval elements crossed the border and destroyed the base in sector Alpha 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 16, parking significant forces deep in Borak space. This is clearly going to be a staging area for further attacks. Can the Borak hold out against the hordes of haranguing harpies from hearth and home? Mind the gap. A Klingon transport frigate in Tholian space decided to show the Tholians what honor and bravery meant. The ship raced to the location of an unknown monster rampaging through the area and managed to identify the creature as a mind monster before succumbing to the horrible mental deprecations of this alien horror. Growth industry. The Hydran world of High Coman has seen a surge of immigration and economic growth over the last year. Trade with the world of Transitus has become a boon for this old colony, revitalizing arts and entertainment with an influx of alien concepts and styles. Some say that Riemann is becoming an unofficial second language on this world. The more xenophobic elements of the old Hydran culture warn of undue influence from the green-blooded outsiders. One thing is for certain. For good or ill, High Coman will never be the same again. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been your galactic news. Cough, cough. Here we are. All right, let me just do a quick little audio check. I tried to use this exciting scream. Let me know if you can hear it. Looks like you can't. All these buttons are not working. Stand by. None of them are working all of a sudden. Okay, that's good stuff. All right, I had a lot of little sound effects set up in the background here, and none of them seem to be connected at this time, which is unfortunate because they were working literally moments before we went live. Very frustrating, my friends. Okay, let's try and see if we can change this in the real time as we are doing it here. Here we go, audio input, and we're going with the boom right there. Bam. All right, let's try this. Can you hear this now? There we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are back. That's right. All right. So here we are in full effect in stereo sound, ready to rock the clock as we talk about all things exciting and delighting. But before I get too far into my storytelling about the pain train that is the Carnivon Horde, let me just say hello to all of our folks in the chat. That's right. We got Bill Smitty in the house, the ISC treacherous backstabber coming in from the northeast. We have Julian K tier, made the recap on time today. Hoorah! We got Devin Dean, and here we go. Eugene Lost Muskrat is here. Hello, Eugene, our local affairs public affairs officer, keeping us up to date on the latest and greatest exciting news. He says, how will the Borak overcome the obstacles they currently face? Will their peace terms be accepted? Haven't yet. Will they even be reasonable to those that seem to have the upper hand? Updates begin now. Oh, Bill Smith is telling Julian, hey, and Devin. Everybody, please hit the like, or Terrible Tony Morrow, the office linebacker, will get you. Oh, yes. Terrible Terry Tate. That is what he's talking about. That's right. Terry Tate. What a... I was watching that just recently, just, in preparation for all this stuff, and I was laughing my tail off. I forgot how awesome those commercials were, and I didn't realize, I didn't remember that it was from the early 2000s. But it's crazy. Like, still watching those commercials today, they still make me laugh out loud. It's crazy. All right. Lon Jerome is here. Excuse me. Paul Williams is in the house. Lost Muskrat saying, hear your voice fine, loud and clear. Devin Dean, no worky. Must be a BIE product. Oh, I am hurt. How dare you say such horrible things? Chuck is in the house. Jim is here. Devin has Borak quality problems down. Oh my God. Dell is in the house. Happy Tholian Geode, says the Roxon. And Trunk Monday is quite funny as well. All right. So let's get going and rock the house here. So what are we talking about today? Again, we are talking about war. The as we like to say,
war! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Get sad again.
But to be fair, it is really good for a lot of things. War amps up your economy from its peacetime 50% up to its maximum of 100%. So every one of these factions, the Borak, the Lyrans, the ISC, and the Carnivon, are taking in 100% of their income. How much is that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's slide over and I'll tell you what that is. All right, here we go. We're going to go from top to bottom when it comes to the numbers, and you can see the term progression here. If you look down at the bottom of that graph, you'll notice that we've sort of shortened the time frame as we've been going here. We went from turn 53 to 55 to 57. Now we're going on a turn-by-turn basis. We've got turn 59, 60, 61. There should be a turn 62 in there. I'm not sure why that's not showing. Let's try that again. It is the right. My goodness gracious. All these exciting things that are happening all live, trying to fix things hot on the fly. I don't understand why these things are happening. Crazy. But nonetheless, you can see on the next to my head there, you can see all the numbers. See, now that's crazy. It's showing me exactly what in the world. I've edited the chart. It's showing me the right number, and yet for some reason, it's not giving me what I want. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change. Why is it doing that? Okay. There we go. All right, we're going to change this in real time here as we go, and I'm going to give you an updated image than what we see here. So disregard the graph. I will change that momentarily as we are going. But what I will show you is the numbers as we are going here. Stand by as I'm updating the graph in real time as I'm speaking to you. Here it comes. Stand by. Boom. There it is. Okay, so we've updated the graph. So if we go from top to bottom, here are the numbers. The Tholians are sitting pretty at the bottom of the barrel, but now at over 60, 60.5. The Lyran still hugging the bottom at 62.5. The Borak climbing still just above the Lyrans at 64.5. The Hydrants a half a point ahead of them at 65. The ISC a half a point ahead of them at 65.5. Look at that. The bottom 5 factions all within 5 points of each other. And then, boom, basically another 5 points of a leap to hit the Kzinti in a tier of their own. Then we've got the Federation and the Paravians both in the 80s. We've got the Carnivon sitting pretty at just under 100. And the Klingons cracking triple digits quite a while ago now at 104.5. You can see on the graph now the updated number. You can see that how that is changing over time and see that huddle of factions at the bottom of that screen. You can see all four of them, or five of them, the Tholians, the Lyrans, the Borak, the Hydran, the ISC, all tight together. And then that gray line, the Kzinti, a noticeable bump above. So very interesting to see sort of that escalatory income or growth as we're going. I take some degree of note that you look at the pink line. It's hard to see in that graph, but you look at the pink line right in the bottom, starts to come up, and then the war started, and then it just kind of crumbles down. Horrible, terrible. I'm so sad about the whole thing. It is what it is. But I will say there are some interesting things coming in the future. We shall have to see what happens. But let's take a moment, slide back to the chat, and discuss what we'll be talking about in today's unveil, shall we? All right, everybody. So, as we talked about, we've got the office linebacker, which is now in green as opposed to Terry Tate's classic red, and that represents the Carnivon coming down from the north. But they are not alone. Yes, the ISC are also coming in from the side because they do the reach around so well. As you may have seen in the description for this video, the Carnivon, the Lyrans, and the ISC in their treacherous combination or alliance are now known as the CLIT. They are coming for you. That's right. The beady Borak are trying to hold back the unbelievable, unstoppable juggernaut of three different factions trying to combine on their collective point of origin. That's right. On all sides. And it's funny how all of us have sort of colors in common. When we look at the map, you'll see the Carnivon are a green and yellow. The ISC are a yellow and black. The Borak are a blue and yellow. And of course, the Lyrans are green or yellow and green. So all these color combinations, it just seems sort of apropos, fate, you might say, that they're all somehow tangled in each other's business and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what war is all about. So, yes, the big battles, as we talked about in the news, the galactic news, again, if it isn't true, we're not telling, we had sabotage. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, caught me off guard. A photon fire of goodness has been sent our way. I will take a quick sip. As you can see, Lost Muskrat is our donator of goodness gracious. Thank you very much, Lost Muskrat, our Carnivon player, by the way. That is gold, not yellow, heathen. Okay. Well, I would say that the the Carnivon might be gold, but that's looking like a pretty sickly yellow from the Lyrans. No, I'm kidding. Gold, fine. We have gold-plated goodness from the Lyran side. We have highlights of gold from the Carnivon, and of course, nothing but gold from the ISC. Perhaps they are aligned with another yellow-haired friend we know who likes all things of that color. Who knows? Anywho, moving along our story. Yes, as you heard, there was assassinations that occurred. The innocent diplomat, isolated on an independent, neutral world, was targeted and assassinated. What is happening? Diplomats, according to the global, galactic order, are non-combatants. They are not usually targets of assassination or otherwise hostile acts. And yet, the Carnivon very clearly targeted this diplomatic team on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan. I mean, the Vudar of Homan. They were sitting there doing their business, and yet they were senselessly attacked, not imprisoned or confined or detained, but assassinated. What kind of wild animals are we dealing with here? Civilization is obviously something that's fallen off the cliff when it comes to the Carnies, but nonetheless, I digress. Beyond the assassinations, this was definitely a turn of sabotage. Sabotage was the name of the game, that's right. Several attempts were made against the Borak to sabotage various military infrastructure locations, valid military targets. The Borak themselves made several attempts to sabotage their enemies. A failed attempt against a Lyran vessel was I'm looking for the word, and of course I can't find it. Was intercepted and prevented from occurring thanks to the diligent duties of the Lyran security forces. However, we were successful in crippling a Carnivon tug and preventing, or at least attempting to prevent, some of its efforts to be able to do bad things, set up infrastructure, and prevent or facilitate the destruction of Borak military assets. Of course, the Carnivon have so many ships and so much stuff that they're sending our way, it doesn't matter. Like was said in the news, a costly toll was taken against the Carnivon, but it is a toll that they can very easily pay. So, dogs and cats. Yes, that's right, dogs and cats.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
But it is what it is. The galactic world order is falling apart every day as we see it here. But don't take my word for it. Let's go to the map, and I can show you exactly how things are crumbling. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. We are on the map focusing around all things war. But before we go any further, let's talk about the fleet cap and where the fleets or the military action is in this game. We're going to just expand this ever so slightly and talk about these numbers. So the Borak, you might have remember, were, I think, in the 47s last time we spoke, now at 66. You can see they have a total of 66 ships out and about, 132 attack, 280 defense, with a total fleet cap of 312. Lots of crippled ships. Can you see the stack right here? Boom. Quite a few crippled ships taken in the most recent engagement. The Carnivon have quite literally double 66 to 132. That is double the number of ships. Jesus. Double the number of ships and 278. Oh my God. More than double the attack factors. More than double, or not quite more than double, but almost double the defense factors. And their fleet cap is at 540. Oh my goodness. The Federation, floating with 73 ships out and about. They have 162 total attack factors, 292 defense. The Hydrants, with the magic number 66. That's right, Route 66, heading north and going strong and fast, straight and true. 146 total attack factor, 282 is their defense. The ISC have 55 ships in their fleet, and they are cruising at 135 total attack factors. Note, with 55 or 11 fewer ships in the Borak, they still have more attack factors. That just speaks to the quality of their ships. So the ISC have 135 attack, 249 defense, with a fleet cap at 255. The Klingons, not to be outdone by anybody, they are at 98, still sub 100, but 98 total ships in their fleet, 240 attack, 418 defense, with a fleet cap of 455. Interesting that they are still maintaining so many crippled ships in their fleet when they certainly have the capacity to repair them. Very interesting strategic choice. The Kzinti have a total of 58 ships in their fleet, 136 attack, 244 defense, with a fleet cap at 245. Very sort of similar to the Borak, the ISC, in total number of ships and combat effectiveness. The Lyrans have one fewer ships than the Borak at 65, but much more, or a reasonable 10 points more in total attack factors at 142, 281 defense, and a fleet cap of 307. So quite a few crippled ships on both sides of that particular front. The Paravians have now grown to 30 ships in their fleet with a total attack factor of 90, 172 defense is their total defense factor, matching their fleet cap. I guess the last person on our list here, the Tholians, with 77. That's a great number. That's the peak of punk, the height of disco, and the year Star Wars came out. It's a great number. 77 with 133 total attack and 351 on the defense. So that's our fleet numbers as we see them and know them. Notice the degree to which fleets are growing. And one of the things that has been brought up in the discussions and the discourse and the back and forth around all things in this war is the concern or the focal point around relative strength. Very interesting to note the relative strength of the factions in the combat or in the war vice the other factions. So Klingons in this neighborhood, but not actively engaged in the war. South of the conflict, we have the Kzinti and the Federation. Again, not involved in the conflict, but nonetheless bordering sort of the conflict zone. But these 4 factions that are involved in this fight are escalating or growing their fleets rather quickly, and their combat effectiveness or combat potency is growing in kind. It'll be interesting to see what happens after the combat is concluded. So when the war is done, and usually that'll probably be with these 3 factions standing over the smoking remains of the Borak Empire, when this concludes, what will happen? How will things how will things resolve? I'll be very interested to see how quickly or how slowly they recover their combat or their war economies, and then to what degree that plays out in the relative relations between either the factions of the victorious factions, the Lyrans, the ISC, and the Carnivon, and their neighbors, and or just individually with their neighbors. It'll be very, like I say, very interesting to see how this all plays out, and I'm very curious to see how this evolves. So, regardless, let's talk about what has happened in this concentrated area right here. So, you can see here in Lima 15, I can't zoom in any further, but I will take away the ships real quick. So, right above this white resource is Lima 15. Lima 15 was the location of a YBS. That is a Y-era base station. As you can see, it's a 4-attack, 8-defense base, and it was sort of like a cork plugging the hole here for the forces coming down. Now, it was by no means strong enough to oppose the fleet that came against it. And to give you a sense of the fleet that came in to drop the hammer, Lima 15 had... listen to this. Okay, so the Carnivon attacked with a dreadnought command ship, allows you to control 10 ships above and beyond the dreadnought, so that's good. Then they brought another command cruiser and 5 other heavy cruisers, so 6 heavy cruisers. Then that's not enough. We're going to bring 4 light cruisers along with us. Okay, so we've got a total of 11 ships right off the bat. Then we've got 3 drone bombardment cruisers, which for the Carnivon, we'll show you here in a second, the Carnivon drone bombardment cruisers are more combat effective than their normal cruisers, having a 4 attack versus 3, but 1 less defense factor. So they're a 4-5 versus a 3-6 for the heavy cruisers. So we have 3 drone bombardment cruisers, 5 destroyers, 2 drone bombardment destroyers. So that's a total of 5 drone bombardment ships. And then here's the kicker. 25 frigates. 25 frigates. 25 frigates. So we have Dreadnought, 6 cruisers, one of them a command cruiser. That's 7 ships, plus the 4 light cruisers. That's 11. Then we have 3 drone bombardment cruisers, so that takes us to 14. 5 destroyers, that takes us to 19. 2 drone bombardment destroyers, 21, plus 25 YFFs. That's a total of 46 ships in just that hex. Do you remember we just went over the fleet cap? I only have 66 ships in my whole fleet. And he dropped 46 on 1 base. Wow. Now, with that said, I had for the Borak anyway, a reasonable defensive force. There was the base, obviously. I had 3 command cruisers. One of them was crippled, and I was trying to repair it, but unfortunately, that didn't work out. So I had 3 command cruisers, 1 crippled, got that out of there. 3 heavy cruisers, all of which are the same combat force. So that's 6 cruisers, 4 6s. Those are good ships. There was a tug there, and 5 frigates. So that's a total, that's not an insignificant number. That's over 10 ships. That's 6, 7. I had a total of 12 ships in that hex, but against 46. So even with the EW advantage, the base being able to soak up SIDS, the a disproportional number of cruisers to be able to add firepower, even with all that, what would be relatively speaking, especially compared to the ISC or the Lyrans, because they're more equal, like individually, they're more equal to the Borak based on like what we went through with the fleet cap. They have similar size fleets. They have similar total comp pots. I mean, they're relatively speaking peers in the sense of being able to compare combat effectiveness. The Carnivon are in a league of their own, as clearly demonstrated here. Now, despite this disproportional distribution of forces, we were able to do a reasonable amount of damage. We were able to cripple 4 of their cruisers. We were able to cripple 4 of their light cruisers and 4 of their destroyers. That's a total of 12 ships crippled. That's pretty decent, considering. Meanwhile, our base was destroyed, and all the ships involved, with the exception of the tug, with the exception of the tug, all the ships that were involved in that combat were crippled. So I crippled 12. I lost a base and crippled a total of 11 ships. So that's that's a relatively equal play, so to speak. But again, 46 ships, that's crazy. So what's the consequence of that? Well, you can see that this is the stack of ships that had been in that hex and they retreated out. And then there was this little group of ships that came and tried to pop this base here. So this is a YDK that's being upgraded. Sorry, this is a YBS that's being upgraded to a YDK. And the Carnivon sent a command cruiser, 3 cruisers, and a drone bombardment ship to attack this this base. So there was a not insignificant number of ships to be able to attack it. What was interesting, though, is that when you're attacking a base, if you haven't already seen the combat rules, then please go head down to the tutorial playlist and you'll see the combat tutorial video. When you're attacking a base, you have to offer an approach battle. And so the approach battle was declined and by us, in the sense that the defenders decided not to engage in approach battle and they fought at the base. The attackers chose not to approach the base and withdraw, which is very interesting. That is not what I would have expected, to be fair. I would have expected at least some kind of damage to be done and then a withdrawal afterwards. But the effect of these ships withdrawing the way they did is they are now very well positioned to do a whole bunch of other damage. And I think they were probably expecting to be able to hit this base without any opposition. There was a little bit of opposition, but not, I would say, enough to really make a huge difference. Now the question is, from this position here in Lima Lima 16, they can go forth and do all sorts of other things. Depending on what the objective is of the Carnivon militarily in this context, they can go off and do all sorts of stuff. You might be wondering, Tony, these ships seem to be way out of supply, because if we take away the ships real quick, look at the base. It's all the way back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if it has 4 supply, which is perfectly reasonable, they are out of it. But that's where the tugs come in, because right here, you'll see there is a YTG. So this YTG, there were 2 YTGs in this hex. There was number 3 and number 4. I believe 4 has probably made its way back to the base. Yeah, you can see there's a crippled ship there. The second crippled, or the second striped ship, is a YTG. And that's going to get repaired and probably move forward. This YTG is providing extended supply. So if we assume that they have extended supply of, or a supply tech of 3, that means that their extended supply from this point is 1, 2, 3, meaning that they are now in supply right here. They can move out from here, but they can't really engage in any retrograde movement because A, they're out of range of any supply points to retrograde to, and if they move too far, then they'll be out of supply once their movement is complete. The question is, what is the objective or the goal at this point? Also interesting to note, when you look at the stack of ships, there's a non-crippled ship here, meaning that they could potentially have blocked them here if perhaps they were in that hex. But because these ships are in supply and non-crippled, they contest this hex, so they have that channel of supply. Whereas if this fleet had attacked and destroyed this base and maybe stayed in this hex, then this fleet would have potentially, because they were out of supply, they would have broken off any potential reach that they would have had to be able to return to supply and be combat effective. So, but this is all a moot point. These are like, this is fly shit out of pepper. Because let's look at this stack. So just looking at the ships there's 4 frigates and 3 cruisers, which isn't, I mean, that's a respectable fleet on its own. Oh no, my friends. Oh no. No, the Carnivon have far more exciting goodness here. So we've got Diamond Fleet, Home Fleet, and Wolfpack 6. So let's just pull up a little thing here and there. Okay, so boom. And what else we got? We got Wolfpack 6. Carnivon, Wolfpack 6. Okay, so Wolfpack 6 is the bottom one here. And so I can't really shrink it all that effectively. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, this is probably the best I can do. So if you look at this combination of ships, granted, there's a lot of crippled ships here, right? We've got the crippled frigates, the light cruisers, the destroyers. This is all the stuff that was a result of the fight at the base. But if you disregard those crippled ships, what do they still have uncrippled? Well, they still got their dreadnought. They've got another 9 frigates here, plus another 7 frigates here. That's 16 frigates, plus another 7 frigates. That's 23 frigates, plus a drone bombardment destroyer, a second drone bombardment destroyer, 3 drone bombardment cruisers, a destroyer, a heavy cruiser, and a command cruiser. So they still have, what was that? We were at 27 plus 7 plus 9. So we're at 16, 23, 23 plus 5 with those drone bombardment ships, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. You still have 32 ships that are uncrippled, ready to deploy and do bad things to bad people. Bad people being the Borak, because it's all alliteration, of course. BBB. So that's pretty crazy. And that's just one of the 3 factions. Not 1, not 2, but 3 factions that the Borak are fighting. All right, so is that enough? Is that what do you want to tell me? Is that good enough as far as a recap of what's going on here? Because like I say, that's concentrated right here in this little neck of the woods. Like I say, we've got Wolfpack 2 here. Oh, incidentally, sorry, I apologize. Let's talk about Wolfpack 2. That's this stack right here. Command cruiser, a total of 4 drone bombardment destroyers, another destroyer, 2 commando destroyers, which are just fun, and then another 4 frigates. So that's not nothing, but that's probably going to be there to, I'm going to guess, reinforce and protect a potential base being built there at some point in the near future. And then, if we go further back, we've still got more ships coming down, 3 destroyers, 3 frigates, a drone bombardment cruiser, heavy cruiser, and another frigate. And we got more stuff coming. It's just like water rolling downhill. That's what's happening here. And you know how powerful water is when it really gets going. It's carving its way into Borak space. That's what's happening here. Okay, so that's the Carnivon. Just the Carnivon. Let's roll down to our Lyran friends. Hey, what's up, Lyran? How you doing? All right, so what happened here? The Lyrans had, if you remember from last live stream, and please go check out the recaps on that map if you're not fresh of mind here. The Lyrans had a bunch of ships in these 2 hexes, India 21 and 22, that were sort of caught behind enemy lines. We had a number of fleets that were sitting in India 23 and Hotel 23, sitting in these 2 hexes that were cutting off access for these Lyran ships. So they were out of supply and behind enemy lines. What they had done, though, is they had liberated, so to speak, these resources so that the Borak couldn't use them. Okay, so that negatively impacted, obviously, the Borak economy, and but they were isolated. So there were a number of little interactions that occurred, little fights, and as a result of those little fights, and I'll do a quick little recap here of, excuse me, of those battles. So we had a battle in we have a battle in India 22, which is this hex right here. There was there was a couple of things. The Lyrans attempted to destroy this base in Juliet 20. They took those ships that were out of supply, moved them up there to attack that base. But luckily for the Borak, they had reaction orders written and enough ships in the area to be able to effectively defend that base. And so there was, if I try and find Juliet 22, or Juliet 20, excuse me. So there was a light cruiser, 2 destroyers, and a frigate that went in to attack. And defending it, the Borak had we had a YCA, a tug, and 6 frigates. So more than enough to be able to defend against that, because keeping in mind, when a ship is out of supply, its defense factors are still full, but its attack factors are halved. So these ships, for example, had the light cruiser is a 3.5, so 1.5. The destroyers and the frigates are all 2-point attack ships, so they had 1 point each. So if you add it all together, there was a total of 4.5 attack factor on the Lyran side, and much more than that on the Borak side. Because again, cruiser has 4, 6 frigates at 6, so there was quite a difference there. So this battle really went one way, and as a result, the Lyrans sacrificed a destroyer, and the rest of the ships retreated. So a destroyer was destroyed, and then we had a series of battles as they fell back. And so India 21, which is this hex where this YCA is, there was a fight there. And in that fight, Lyrans had a light cruiser, a destroyer, and a frigate, again, out of supply. And as a result of that battle, the destroyer and the frigate were destroyed. As you can see, there's a light cruiser still surviving. It had withdrawn from battle prior to the actual combat. And then there was one little frigate left alone here. And, ships attacked that. There was a ridiculous number of Borak ships that attacked and destroyed that destroyer easily. So, basically, ships were caught out of supply. The Borak took advantage of that and destroyed the majority of those ships. The only ship that has survived is the light cruiser, which is valuable, and is currently stuck in this spot here. Now, why is that interesting? Well, if we take away the ships, notice that this hex is still a fog of war hex, meaning it's not explored. You can't draw supply through it. You can't move seamlessly through it. When you go into a fog of war hex, it stops you. Why? Because you can't move seamlessly through that hex. So this hex is fog of war. A fleet has moved in there from the Lyran side. Silver Moon. Let's see here. Silver Moon. So you can see Silver Moon is a light cruiser and 2 frigates. I expect that this was probably an effort to there had been a Borak survey ship in this hex, and so the Borak survey ship, had been attacked by Silver Moon and had retreated out, and then during the Borak turn had moved into this hex with the combat and then retroed here to the YDK. So you can see there's a crippled YCR in that hex, and that's where that came from. So Silver Moon attacked the YSR and is currently in that hex, and then there's the YCL here as well. So if you combine these two fleets, which they could, there's 2 CLs and 2 FFs potentially in that little nook and cranny. And then, of course, down here, there is a tug, 2 tugs, I should say, 3 light cruisers, and 3 frigates, plus home fleet. And Lyran home fleet has sort of reconstituted itself a little bit. There had been a lot of cripples in there from a couple turns ago. And so now we've got the 3 frigates, the 3 light cruisers, plus what's here. Heavy dreadnought, 4 heavy cruisers, another light cruiser, so a total of 4 light cruisers in this hex, a total of 5 frigates, a destroyer, so again, 5, 4, 5, so it's another 14 ships, 15 with the destroyer, and then the heavy dreadnought makes that 16. So 16 ships in this hex right here, plus all these ships in Night Roar. Lyran Night Roar. Where am I finding these? Night Roar fleet. Okay, so Night Roar fleet is a stack of cripples. We've got 6 total crippled destroyers and a total of 6 crippled light cruisers in this hex right here. So, how we doing? So far, if we look at the 2 fronts that we're fighting, we've got an absolute bloodbath in the north because the Carnivon are rolling downhill and there's nothing that can stop them. Meanwhile, we have the Lyrans coming in from the southwest, and I would say that from all perspectives, the Borak are doing well relative to the Lyrans in the sense that they have dulled the approach. Oh, Daniel, if you are online or you're in the live stream, just pop something in the chat. I'm noticing something on the map that that sort of needs to be done. So yes, the Lyrans are sort of blunted, if we want to say that, but they are still making their way certainly forward. Look at this, Black Claw down here. Let's take a look at Black Claw. Ooh, hadn't noticed you at first. Look at this little fleet of something. 7 ships, 2 light cruisers, and a command cruiser. Where are you going, my friend? I bet you're going somewhere interesting. Interdasting. Okay. So, anywho, the Lyrans and the Borak, I would say, are at a fairly equal stalemate, all things considered. No one's advancing one way or the other. Lines are being held relatively solidly. The odd victory on one side or the other. It's all good. The Carnivon are crushing, killing, and destroying all Borak that they face. And who is the last of this trifecta that we need to concern ourselves with? Well, it's the ISC. So the ISC, as we look here, look at if you can look at this map and look at the fleets. We remember that they have a total of, what was the fleet cap number? 55 ships? ISC have 55 total ships. Let's look at what they have here. We have Justice, Enforcement, Home Fleet, and then this stack of ships. So a light cruiser, 2 light cruisers, 3 destroyers, a frigate, command cruiser, and cruiser. I always find it exciting trying to visually sort out the mix here. So we got Home. Let's pull up Home. Where's ISC? ISC Home. ISC Home Fleet. Then we got the named ones. So those are the ISC, please, not Lyrans. ISC, named echelons. Okay, so named echelons, Home Fleet. So we've got Justice and Enforcement. So Enforcement's right here, and Judgment's right here. So that's a total of 4 ships, plus this is 5. Then we've got, of course, the ships here. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, including the cripple, 13, 14 ships there. So we got a total of 14 ships here in this little stack right here. Back here, we have Judgment and Law Fleet. What was the other one here? Enforcement. So Enforcement and Justice. Justice is 1, Enforcement is 3. Okay. And then back here, we have Law and Judgment. So Law is a total of 5 ships. Judgment is another 2. That's 7. 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got 10 ships here. We had, 15 ships here. That's 25 ships. And then that's pretty much the stack of their combat-capable fleet. All the other ones are exploration and survey ships with the odd tug here and there. So this is the bulk of their combat fleet, and they're coming down this way. What are they doing? Well, building a base here, obviously, building a supply and logistical network to be able to get in. The ISC have supply 4, as they have demonstrated. So if they have supply 4, then that would indicate that they, for example, they'll build a base here, probably build a base in Alpha 15 or something close, and they will continue to make their way down to this bad boy here. So we've got ships defending it, and we're going to have a big fleet of good stuff heading down. Probably not this turn, although maybe this turn. They might rush in and try and attack this base while it only has 6 frigates defending it. We'll see what happens. But it'll be very interesting to see when this fleet comes in, when this battle occurs, and how that sort of gets resolved. Like I say, very interesting to see how the ISC attack will progress. But nonetheless, again, big picture. You've got the bulk of Borak forces holding the line with the Lyrans. You've got the secondary force of Borak forces getting absolutely pummeled by the Carnivon. And then you have, for all intents and purposes, a token force. Because, we've got over like 30 ships on the Lyran front. We've got maybe 20 ships close to and around the Carnivon front. And then we've got like maybe 10 ships over on the ISC front. So, distribution of forces here. The ISC, the ships assigned to defend against the ISC, they're not going to be enough to hold off the ISC. The question is how the ISC advance and when they hit and what that's going to look like. So we'll have to see how this all sort of moves forward in the coming turns. Like I say, it'll be very, very interesting. Do the Borak survive? I just don't see a way for the Borak to hold off against ISC, Lyran, and Carnivon forces. If it was just the Lyrans and just the ISC, maybe. Like, that's a 2-to-1 fight. And on the defensive, the Borak have a slight advantage. But the Carnivon alone have a 2-to-1 ship advantage. Alone. So this is now a 4-to-1 fight. A 4-to-1 fight that you can't, that's coming in from almost totally polar opposite directions. The Lyrans and the ISC are literally polarly opposite direction-wise, like this, right? And the Carnivon are coming in from a 45-degree angle north of where the Lyrans are coming in from. So the ability to share forces and sort of collaborate in the defense is really compromised. So it's just a matter of time. There's only so much the Borak can do and create in order to be able to defend themselves. So how is this going to work out? I don't know. I just don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves and to what degree and how much sort of pain everybody's willing to incur. And then the other component is based on the number of war turns, because the Lyrans went to war with the Borak, I think I'd have to look exactly, but, a number of turns ago. And so I'm looking here, it looks like 95 spring or turn 59 was the turn they went to war. And so this is turn 63 we're going into. So that's 4 turns of war. That's the minimum number of war turns that you can have. And let's see how this goes. We've got 4 turns of war, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves going forward. Will the Borak be able to hold out? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Okay, so that's the Borak, the ISC, the Carnivon, and the Lyrans in a nutshell. Yes, there's more going on. The ISC don't really have much else other than they're focusing on the attack on the Borak. The Borak obviously have nothing else going on. They are just trying to survive this attack. If we look at the Carnivon here, our gold and green, our GG colors, we can see that the overwhelming majority of forces, Wolfpack 1, all this stuff that's stacked here, Diamond Fleet, Wolfpack 6, what else we got here? We got Wolfpack 2, Diamond, Wolfpack 6, and Home Fleet. All this stuff is down here. Look at all the ships. I'll just flash the ships real quick. There's very little anywhere else. The only 2 other fleets are Wolfpack 3 and 4 for the Carnivon. And when we look at Wolfpacks, here we go. Wolfpack 3 is a command cruiser, drone bombardment, and a total of 7 frigates. That's right here. Wolfpack 4 is a destroyer and 5 frigates. So remember, 132? 132 ships. And out of 132 ships, over 100 of them are coming down the pipe at the Borak, or something close to that. That's crazy. Certainly more ships are coming at the Borak than the Borak have total number of ships. If we look at the Lyrans real quick, let's see here. So we have, like we talked about, we did Silver Moon, we did Night Roar, we did the fleet here with Home Fleet, and we got Black Claw. Whether they're looking to come around the bottom or who knows where they're going, but nonetheless, they are here at this YBS right here. We've got Foremost Fleet here. So let's just take a quick look at Foremost Fleet. CADD 2FFs. Nothing too crazy, but nonetheless, probably, as you can see here, guarding the homeworld. And then what else we got? We got Apex in the backyard. So Apex is, let's see here, Apex Fleet. So Apex Fleet is a cruiser, light cruiser destroyer sitting here. A destroyer with a diplomat trying to improve planetary attitude here, but as you can see, they are very unhappy. We have a bunch of survey activity happening here. We have a tug that is, I'm assuming, providing extended supply, as there is no base constructed here. Although, convoy is building. Has it completed building? 96 falls. So this should be completed at this point, the YBS here. So this YBS is completed, meaning it has 3 supply at least. So 1, 2, 3 has supply reach out to all here. So these vessels or these ships will continue to do survey out to the edge here in the Romeo column probably. We have convoy here. I'm assuming is going to build a base shortly to facilitate this survey ship doing exploration. Maybe right now it's just providing extended supply at this point. But the majority of all their combat forces is in this pocket right here. If we look up here at the, as we look up here at the Klingons, remember they have a bunch of crippled ships that they haven't repaired. They have under 100 ships total. Interesting. So West Fleet, for example, these are the fleets sort of on the border here. We got Blue, West, and First. So these guys are predominantly just repair fleets. So the first Imperial War Squadron is just a bunch of crippled ships. 3 crippled ships. The West Fleet, Klingon West Fleet is, boom. What do we got here? 4. So we got a total of 7 ships. Half of them basically are crippled. Blue Fleet in the background. Nothing much going on here. Let's see. Kempek is blue. We got, again, a token number 5 F4s and a command cruiser. This is basically a picket fleet designed to maybe respond to any activity from the Carnivon side. But as we've talked about, the Carnivon are overly invested in the other side of the map. We've got Green Fleet. Look at that, a Green Fleet all the way back here. I wonder what the Green Fleet's doing. Green Fleet, which I believe is a Martok fleet. Here we go. So look at this. We got some 3 E1Ts, which are 3 to transports. Combine them 3 together, they can act almost like a tug. They can do a lot of the things tugs can do. So I'm curious what they're doing. They're moving a planetary ground base somewhere. Where is the question? I don't know. The E1Ts can only move 3. That's why, for example, the capitals here, 1, 2, 3, they can only move 3 at a time. So that's why they're there. We've still got the stack of the Tholian Border Squadron on the wormhole. So Klingon Tholian Border Squadron, which again is just a stack of 8 F4s. God, F4s are such good ships. We've got Home Fleet, Klingon Home Fleet, which is probably, again, a bunch of F4s. Yep, 7 F4s with 1 crippled. Still, these crippled ships haven't changed over the past couple turns. I'm really curious as to why that is the case. We've got 2nd and 3rd Imperial War Squadrons. So let's see here. Imperial War Reserves, excuse me. So a stack of how many? 6 crippled in 2nd. And 3rd is another stack. So we've got a total of 12 crippled ships sitting here on these YDKs doing nothing. Very interesting. Very interesting. Looks like this D4E is getting slowly repaired by this YBS. Interesting. Probably slowly the same case is happening here with these F4Gs. Takes 2 points to repair, and a YBS can repair 2 points. So it looks like they maybe repaired 1 and slowly working forward. We have continuous exploration by the Klingons along this border. They continue to push, push, push. If we pull back the ships real quick, no other, I mean, we've got 96 Fall, which was turn 62. That was completed. This will be completed in turn 63. So this base is completed, providing at the very least 3 supply. So that's interesting. What's this? Is this a tug? That's a tug. So this tug is providing extended supply to these ships doing survey, I'm assuming. And maybe there's some more stuff in this neighborhood that will move and provide supply to other ships. Interesting to note. So the Klingons continue to push south with their exploration as we go. All right. So we've just finished the top of the map. I'm going to come back to the chat. We'll check in, and then we'll do the southern part of the map as we follow up. Here we go. All right, let's talk about some chat. Look at that. We've got 16 concurrent viewers. Looks like there were 17 here a moment ago. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here. Let's find here. So, oh, my God, there's all this chat. All right, we're picking up from where the last coffee was fired. We have Chuck saying, that is gold, not yellow, heathen. Yes, all things gold. Solomon's Folly as we go. Dell. It's only the CLI. The Tholians were advised against joining the Alliance to make an amusing name. Well, from the propagandist perspective, we are calling them the Carnivon, Lyran, ISC Treachery, the trifecta, you might say. So that's where the CLIT acronym comes from. Julian says, you mean the TILC? You must mean the TILC. The TILC? Tilk, maybe? No one expects the Tilk. Dogs and cats. Julian, just out of curiosity, was there ever an original race for the ISC? I don't remember. As far as I know, the ISC are, and I think that's what Lost Muskrat's saying here, they are a federation-like association with several intelligent species. So basically, it's an alternative federation. Only they enforce peace through violence, for lack of a better way to describe it. What else we got here? Like cousins, maybe. Is another federation-type government of five... Oh, Jim's saying it's another federation-like government with 5 major races. Okay. Julian, well, whoever they are riding roughshod now. Chuck says, your only uncrippled ships are watching the Lyrans. Your only uncrippled ships are watching... Your only uncrippled ships. Oh, yes. So the uncrippled ships. So what he's saying is that the only ships the Boraks have. No, let's try that again. The only ships that are uncrippled are watching the Lyrans, meaning that what he's trying to say is that the majority of all the ships are on the Lyran front. Now, it's important to understand the sequence, right? So as we talk about in this game, there's initiative. The lower your economy, the earlier you go in initiative. So, for example, we did the beginning, we talked about the economies, right? So at the start of the turn, the economies are the economy determines your initiative. The lower your economy, the earlier you go. So the Tholians are first. If I look at where we go, so we got Tholians go first, then the Lyrans, then the Borak, then the Hydran, then the ISC, Kzinti, Federation, Praevian, Carnies, and Klingons. So what does that mean? That means that the Lyrans will go before the Borak. So let's say, for example, the Lyrans attack the Borak and do a whole bunch of damage. Well, the Borak can then start their turn, assuming those ships are on places where they can get repaired. They get repaired and they do their thing. Go out and attack and do whatever. And then they go out through the rest of the turn, and then the Carnivons go and they attack. So, for example, when you see that stack of crippled ships, one of the reasons why that is sort of the order of sequence or the order of initiative. And because it was the Carnivon's initiative or their phase, they attacked, destroyed the base, and the ships that were there retreated. As opposed to if it was the Borak turn, reaching out and attacking something and then retrograding back to the base. Why is that important? Well, the ships that aren't on a base obviously can't repair during the Borak turn. So, for example, those ships that are crippled in the north against the Carnies, they don't have anywhere to go to repair at the start of their turn. They have to move to a repair point and then they can get repaired. So that's, from a time perspective, they have to move somewhere, then get repaired. Whereas in previous turns, the Lyrans attacked the Borak at a point of repair. They were able to defend those attacks, and whatever ships were or were not crippled, they were able to repair on the repair point and then move out and attack. So it's just it's a weird sort of initiative management thing you just got to think about. But he's correct. Chuck is correct in the sense that currently the disposition of ships, there is a boatload of crippled ships in the north. There is a boatload of uncrippled ships in the south, for lack of a better way to describe it. Basically, Carnivons unloaded a huge, overhand right to the Borak, and the Borak are reeling from that punch, as opposed to a jab that they were able to block or recover from and then attack back. What else we got here? So 25 frigates, Dell says. Why such a small number? Of course. 25 frigates was a little obscene, Lost Muskrat says, because he is, of course, the Carnivon player. 5 races for the ISC. Never obscene. You were just prepping to replace them. Tony, did you have EW advantage? During the fight with the Carnivon? Yes. But it didn't really do much because quantity is its own quality. It's always good to withdraw afterwards, especially when you spell it right. I am doing my job, Chuck says. Bill, because Chuck, of course, is saying that his whole role is to be able to tie up my forces. Bill says, Senior Pew Pew. Eugene, 17 watching, 4 likes. What do you think of the Carnivon? What do you think the Carnivon would require to allow Borak to go to peace with them? Would they abandon the ISC and Lyran allies? Lost Muskrat replying, the Carnivon will emphatically not abandon its co-belligerents. Same from the ISC. So it's an interesting dynamic. Again, like talking about the game from sort of like a role-playing perspective. So we have the war game, obviously. That's the sort of the tactical crunchy bits of like doing the combat. And then there's the political aspect of us like talking back and forth. So in the prelude to this war, if you remember, there was the conflict or the tensions around the Romulans between the Lyrans and the Borak. And so there was the Borak had engaged in a diplomatic effort and reached out to the Carnies, the Klingons, a whole bunch of other factions to try and exert some sort of diplomatic pressure to the Lyrans, saying, hey man, you should consider just like, agreeing to these terms, or like, let's not go to war, or some kind of diplomatic pressure to reach some kind of conclusion, because the Borak at that point had been engaging with the Lyrans to try and reach some kind of territorial agreement, a border or something, whatever. And obviously the two sides weren't able to reach any kind of agreement. Like they were so far apart, nothing was happening. Okay, so the Lyrans, obviously one of those factions spoke out or contacted the Lyrans, or the Lyrans just contacted these other factions. And the Lyrans, for example, contacted the Carnies, and they agreed to work together. Because why not? Like, why not? So they agreed to go together. So the Lyrans started the war with attacking that tug from a couple turns ago, 4 turns ago. And then shortly thereafter, the Carnies jumped in. And then the next turn, or 2 turns later, the ISC jumped in. So over the span, I guess it must have been like over the span of 4 turns, all 3 of these factions jumped in on the war. So, but whereas the Borak were trying to get diplomatic pressure, the Lyrans are using military pressure because it's a war game, and they combined or built this alliance to be able to attack the Borak. So here we are. We're in this situation. So now the factions are working together. So the Borak have tried to negotiate with each of them in the sense of trying to contact them to figure out some kind of path forward. Like, how can we get to peace? And it's an interesting tactic. No single faction, ISC, Lyran, or Carnivon, will agree to any terms or set out any terms without the others agreeing. So what ends up happening is this interesting dynamic of a proposal is made. So, for example, the Borak are very motivated, understandably, to make some kind of terms for peace, or like terms to cease hostilities. So let's say, for example, we make a proposition to the the Carnivon, by example, because they're the big baddie. They're, looking to beat us into pulp. And the Carnivon will say, well, I can't agree to anything until the other two agree. So don't talk to me, talk to them. Okay, no problem. So then I go talk to them. Let's say we go to the ISC next. And the ISC will say, well, I can't agree to anything. You got to talk to them. Okay, well, then we go to Lyran's. And Lyran say, we're not going to agree to anything. You got to talk to them. So this interesting deflection game that happens where no single faction will agree or consider any terms unless all three of them together. And of course, because we are playing a game over multiple time zones in a virtual space, and it's not in person at a tabletop, well, none of us are here at the same time. Or no, it's very challenging to get everybody at the same spot at the same time, which makes any kind of negotiation with the collective group very difficult. So, what does that mean? How do we move forward? It's I think it is a very interesting challenge by design, meaning that when you have that sort of structure or that sort of a tacit agreement with everybody, it makes it really hard for the person in the compromised state, which the Borak are, right? They're getting attacked, they're getting beaten, they're so motivated to come to some kind of stop the pain, right? But it becomes a structural problem to even get to a peace, meaning there is an excuse or a reason why peace is never attained, or there's no surrender terms ever agreed to, because no one can agree to them, because it's always talk to the other guy, talk to the other guy, talk to the other guy. Yeah, so Jim says someone means someone is going to have a sore bottom. And of course, Jim speaks from experience, because, if there's anybody in our group that has experience with getting, Hershey highwayed, it's Jim. So really, I think Jim and I are going to have some one-on-one time to understand what kind of ointment and cream you really need for those hemorrhoids, because, I got to go to the subject matter expert. You know what I'm saying? Bring out the Vaseline. I think it's got to be more than Vaseline. Ramming speed, as Dell says. Yes, very nice. Okay, so it's an interesting dynamic from the role-playing side. And whenever you're playing games like this, of course, and you tell me, when you have played role-playing games or games like this where there's a role-playing element, how much of the game, this side of the game, the role-playing aspect, how much of it is the person, like the player, and how much of it is the character? Because, for example, you can have, actors, right? They play different characters, and you have this might date me, right? But you have actors like Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds always played Burt Reynolds in a role, with maybe the only exception being Deliverance. If you haven't seen that movie, go check it out. But Burt Reynolds was Burt Reynolds was Burt Reynolds. Like Burt Reynolds was Burt Reynolds in a movie, and so it was always Burt Reynolds. Kind of like The Rock, right? Like Dwayne Johnson is Dwayne Johnson in every movie, with some minor exceptions, as opposed to actors who like Christian Bale, by example, in The Machinist is very different from Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy, obviously. And even just recently, like the Ford versus Ferrari movie, very different, right? And so how much of the interaction between the players from a role-playing perspective is the person, and how much of it is the character? It's gonna. There's a spectrum, obviously, because not everybody is an Academy Award-winning actor, nor wants to be, and some people are just sort of like vicariously living out their ego through their through their game. And so, to what degree does it all play in together? And here's the question for you: what happens when you have, and I'll use this as the metaphor, right? Burt Reynolds being the player versus the Academy Award-winning actor. Who will I use as an example? Let's say it's Burt Reynolds versus, I don't know, Cillian Murphy, because he just most recently won it, right? So when you're faced with those two different kinds of actors, who comes out on top? who is the actor who is the character that is adaptable, responsive, and successful in those situations. Is it the Burt Reynolds type player, or is it the Cillian Murphy type player? Very interesting to see. So anyways, I'll throw that out there. You let me know what you think. No one will abandon anyone until they do. All right, so let's slide back into the map. We're going to talk about the southern factions, that is the Kzinti, the Federation, the Tholians, the Hydrons, and the Praevians. And let's jump into that right now. Oh, that is not the screen that I was looking to go to. My mistake. Let's go. All right. So my head's on the wrong side of the map. Let's slide that over. And we're going to start with our big red friends, the Tholians. Now, recently, we heard in the news that the Klingons ran into the cloud icon here, which is now known as a mind monster. So the E1T that was in this area moved to engage the cloud, which is now identified as a mind monster. And so now the Tholians are aware of what this is and maybe what they have to do. So what are we looking at here? The monster continues to sort of roam without any sort of clear opposition. We have 1st Garrison and Home Fleet in the vicinity. Okay, let's take a look at Tholian 1st Garrison. So we can see the garrison here is basically a tug. That's what these 3 CPCs are. That's a tug, an escort destroyer, and a exploration freighter. So not much going on here. Nothing that they can really do. Then there's Home Fleet. Let's look at Tholian Home Fleet. There it is. Boom. There's the fleet. So we got 2 cruisers, a total of 9 destroyers, 4 CPCs, and a commando ship. So these ships could certainly go out there and engage the monster. But to what degree does a mind monster, what does that mean? I don't know the answer. Maybe our GM at some point will tell us. But what's going on with the mind monster and how is that moving forward? We shall see. I'm curious how Dell will respond. Other than that, what can we see here? We have continued exploration and survey on the fringes or at the edges of supply. Interesting to note. Notice this planet. 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no other supply point within range. I can think it is safe to say that our good friends, the Tholians, have reached 4 supply. Guess. You tell me. I think it's fair to say they've reached 4 supply and they are reaching out and trying to survey as much as they can. Okay. Survey, exploration, that's what they're doing. New fleet. Let's see what new fleet is. Tholian new fleet. So you can see your cruiser, a total of 7 destroyers and some tugs. So new fleet's going to go out and do some stuff. The question is where, what, and how. We shall see. Our scouts need to switch the lights on, he says. Interesting. Okay, so lots of continued survey. Now, if I just flash the ships real quick, you can see that there's not a lot of new EP found. There was this one up here, but the rolls, just for whatever reason, are not being very friendly to the Tholians as we go, unfortunately. That's just sort of the way it goes. Challenging. All right, let's slide across to our good friends, the orange and gold. Let's do a quick flash. This is where this is interesting. I'm just going to look at this disposition. So if I'm the, for example, let's look at the Tholians real quick. They've got a weird distribution of resources, right? They've got like a scattering in the south and this weird kind of arm up the side. If we look at the Kzinti, very concentrated in their southwest, less so up to the north, but very concentrated here. We look at the Feds, it's pretty much scattershot everywhere. And if I slide my head to the other side, we can see that the Hydrons, again, more of a scattershot, but certainly a sort of a preference to the east. But if we look at the Praevians, look at this. Obviously, concentration here, a little bit on the edges, but there's quite a concentration up here, sort of near the Kzinti border. What does that remind me of? That reminds me of this. This being the Borak, we'll call it the Borak bulge. The Borak bulge in this area seems, at least on the face of it, very similar to this bulge of stuff up here. Like I say, very interesting to see. But I'm curious to see like how, if we bring back the ships, what's the interaction going to be like between the Kzinti and the Paravians when they bump into each other? I'm very curious to see what that's like. But we saw the Paravians have now 30 ships in their fleet. They have, let's see here, they only really have one major fleet, if memory serves, which is Eagle Fleet. So let's take a look at Eagle Fleet. I have a feeling they just keep building up Eagle Fleet to go crush Solar here. So we got a total of 4 cruisers, 13 frigates. So that's a pretty decent fleet. And they look to be, we'll see what happens, they look to be getting ready to perhaps pound on Solar here. Let's take a look. Let's move this over here. We'll put that over there in the corner. And Solar. Okay, sorry. There's a dreadnought command cruiser, 3 destroyers, 6 frigates, and a convoy. And then, of course, on top of that, so the fleet, the Eagle Fleet versus that is bigger, although doesn't have the same command factor because they the Remans have a dreadnought. But then, of course, they also come on now, behave. There we are. So they also have 4 planetary ground bases, a YBS, not a YDK, which is interesting. So I think Eagle Fleet's not quite big enough to take it, but it's close. I think the determining factor is the fact that the Dreadnought will be able to bring more combined attack factors to the fight. They will have an EW advantage, and because of the base and the planetary ground bases, there's just more firepower that's going to be in the fight. If I'm the Paravians, I would imagine I'm building something like a Dreadnought, maybe, or just pumping a whole bunch of frigates into this fight. But it's so interesting, sort of the Paravian progression, because I feel like the Paravians are working on something. What is the question? What are they working on? I'm very curious to know. So again, just as a reminder, the Paravians have, as far as an income, 84 EP. And they're building bases, don't get me wrong, but they don't have a fleet. Like 30 ships in their fleet for their size is really small. Every other faction has a bigger fleet. So where are they spending their money? I can only assume it's R&D. I'm really curious to find out. I mean, we can only wait and see, and it'll be interesting to see how they sort of like impact their neighbors, the Kzinti, the Feds, the Hydrons, the Tholians. It's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. Too exciting. Okay, so that's the Paravians. Let's slide over to our good friends, the Hydrons. Okay, so the Hydrons continue to explore along this border, which is interesting. They are opening up the border. Now, why is that sort of like a point of concern? Well, if you'll remember, the Borak were doing that very aggressively with the Carnivon and the Lyrans and the ISC. And how did that work out for them? Obviously not very well, because the Borak are getting pounded by all 3 of those factions. So the question is, are the Hydrons going to face a similar response once they sort of bump up against the Paravians? I don't know. We'll have to see. It'll be very interesting to find out. Will the Hydrons choose to flex on the Paravians when they bump up to that border? Or will the Paravians flex on the Hydrons? I don't know. There's so many different directions it can go. Of course, we're several turns away from that because of the fog of war in between them. And of course, where Paravians are with regards to this Reman planet and so on. There's lots of sort of like issues or frictions there. So it'll be very interesting. But I will say there is a derelict in the bottom of Hydron space. I don't remember that from last turn, so I'm assuming that's brand new. This tug is either heading to pick it up or maybe it was there the term previous. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm assuming it was there the term previous because this YTG is on its way to obviously pick it up. So I'll be curious to know what it is when you find out. Our good Hydran player, let us know. What do your tentacles tell you about what it may be? Other than that, again, the Hydrans, like many of these other factions in the south, are in their exploration phase. They are pushing exploration to the max. You can see that along all their borders. I'm going to guess, if I can see here, yeah, so once they've gotten 3 hexes, or maybe 4, we'll see, they will most likely build another base to be able to continue to push to the north and get up into this neck of the woods. We'll see what that looks like when it happens, but it'll be very interesting to see how this moves forward as we go. So very interesting. Very, very interesting. So that's the Hydrans. That's the Paravians. That's the Tholians. Now, let's slide my head to the other side and talk about, anytime you're ready, merge. Well, all of a sudden I'm experiencing a technical difficulty. My buttons aren't working. Okay, let's try this. There we go. Now things are working again. All right. So let's talk about the Fédération. All right. So Federation. What do we got here? We've got 5th Fleet, Expeditionary Fleet, 2nd, 3rd. These are all survey fleets that are continuing to push out to the borders as we can see it here. The hotel, as a reminder, the hotel wormhole goes to the back end of ISC space. You can see there's a token fleet here just guarding or plugging the hole, as the case may be. Nothing really happening here one way or another. We've got bases. Maybe this tug will build a base soon. I'm not sure, but continuing exploration into the top end here. We've got bases along this latitude that is facilitating exploration up towards the border zone here. Task Force Rady, which is sort of the thing I was looking at, I'm assuming is sort of a picket fleet for the Order. ISC Order Fleet. ISC Order Fleet isn't really anything. We can see here Order Fleet is a light cruiser with a diplomat. So Rady's just kind of babysitting, for lack of a better way to describe it. But Rady is a little bit more than what's needed for that. So if we look at Task Force Rady, you can see it's a total of 4 light cruisers, more than enough to pop that light cruiser if need be. Other than that, what do we have? We've got, again, base construction along the south. Looks like we have a diplomat along with Home Fleet. Let's see what's in Home Fleet. So Home Fleet is not insignificant. We've got a total of 4 frigates, 6 light cruisers, a scout, and a command cruiser. And I guess they're trying to do diplomacy. I don't know. They still, Romulans. Let's try that again. Romulans here are still very they're hostile. So I don't understand how there's a fleet there without there being a battle. Maybe there's some role-playing elements that I'm not party to. But nonetheless, something is happening here. How that moves forward, we shall have to see. As we go along the corner here, you can see more exploration. Oh, there were 2 bases there. I bet you that was built during the conflict. You got Tug here finishing up a base. Let's see. Ships. So 97 Spring. 97 Spring will be turn 63. So that'll be completed this turn. And we got that staggering base formation along there. And what else we got here? Unhappy the Voodar are with Unhappy the Voodar are with the Federation. I know, wrong sci-fi series. But the Gorn are happy. And that in itself is a huge victory because the Gorn just don't like everybody. As we slide over to the Kzinti, as we were talking about, the Kzinti distribution is resource distribution is very interesting, but we see them continuing to push exploration on all the outer edges here, Olympus, Ally, Earl, and so on. If we take away the ships real quick, you can see a YDK being upgraded over in this corner. Interesting that YDK is being built out that way. Interesting. And a YDK up in the northern border here. The Voodar are friendly. Oh, very nice. Indifferent with the Gorn. And that's pretty much it. So we've got bases continuing to be built. 97 spring, 97 fall. and things are continuing as the Kzinti, that is, are moving to increase their footprint overall, shall we say. So that's the Kzinti, that's the Federation, that's the Tholians, that's the Paravians, and that's the Hydrons in a quick nutshell. So let's slide back, have a little more chat, and see where we're at. All right. So you may be asking, Tony, why do you stream through all those factions in the south versus what's in the north? Well, we're already an hour and a half into this live stream, and of course, we spent so much time on the conflict. Now, when and how conflict arises in the south, we'll spend lots more time down there too. It's funny because like when you're doing the early stages of the game and you're working at like 5 or 10 turns at a time, and there's big changes in the map, there's a little bit more to talk about because there's more change, right? Turn over turn, when you're at the exploration phase of this game, not much changes, right? I mean, you might have a fight, for example, with a minor faction, like we're seeing the preparation for the Paravians, and monsters that show up in like Tholian space. But generally speaking, if you're sort of being quiet, the gray man, so to speak, under the radar, there's not much to talk about. Where's all the action happening? Well, it's in the shit disturbers up north. Like that pack of 4, Borak included, are just stirring the pot and making a whole bunch of noise. So war is exciting because what is war?
War! Good God, y'all! What is it good for? Absolutely! Get sad again!
But nonetheless, you know, that's where the excitement is. So that's why we're talking about it. So we've got the southern faction, nice and quiet, biding their time, waiting to surge forward and perhaps take everybody out. And then in the north, we've got the, for lack of a way to describe it, the problem children who are tossing tables and upending, tossing chairs and upending tables to make lots of attention. But let's take a moment and talk about those problem children just as sort of a final wrap up as we go. What is the fate for the Borak? The Borak are in arguably a no-win scenario. They are facing a 4-to-1 combat, a 4-to-1 ratio for forces allied against them or aligned against them. Literally, the Carnivon have twice the number of ships. If you add the Lyrans and the ISC together, it's almost the same. So 4-to-1. If you look at their economies, the economies of the Lyrans is almost equal to the Borak. If you add the ISC, because they're 65.5, and the Lyrans at 62.5, that's 128. The Borak have 64.5. So if you times that by 2, that's 129. 129 versus those two factions, so it's 2-to-1, and the Carnivon have an economy of 98. So it's not quite 4-to-1, but it's like 3.8 or something like that. 3.9 maybe. 2-1. So from a military perspective, 4-to-1 outgunned. From an economic perspective, 4-to-1 outgunned for all intents and purposes. Each player has a limit on how much industrial capacity they have to be able to produce. So you've got 3 factions. They're able to produce arguably the same amount as the Borak in one turn. So it's a 3-to-1. 4-to-1 economy, 4-to-1 military, 3-to-1 industrial ratio. You might say it is a no-win scenario.
I don't believe in a no-win scenario.
I don't believe in a no-win scenario. I think there's got to be a way out of this in some way, shape, or form. It may not be conventional. It may not be what you're expecting, but there's got to be a way that the Borak win. But what does winning look like? Does winning mean that I'm going to be able to defeat the Carnivon and the ISC and the Lyrans? If that's what winning is, I think if that's what you are thinking, you might have a problem. Because 4-to-1, 4-to-1, and 3-to-1, respectively, are not odds that work in one's favor. So how do we move this ball forward? How do the Borak eke out something that is not total failure or total destruction? I mean, failure is probably not the right word, but like I say, the Borak are positioned to be totally eradicated from the game. So if survival is winning, how do we survive? I can think of a couple of options. None of them are, like, they're all painful. And they're all going to suck in a big way. But I see a path forward. We'll just have to see. So, here's a question for you. Based on what we've talked about, based on what we've seen, based on all the things we've discussed, if there was a path forward for survival for the Borak, what do you see that being? How could they survive? Is that even a possibility? Is it just a pipe dream? Are you being fanciful? What are you high on, Tony? There's no way that they can survive. Or is there? Put your thoughts in the comments. Put your thoughts in the chat. Let me know what you think about that. Yeah. Because it's going to be interesting to see how this sort of evolves going forward. Okay. I'm going to just summarize some chat here before we roll out the door. What do we got? Excuse me. A lot of big, slow targets. Big, slow target commentary. Dell says, well, you could be very nice to the Klingons. They may help. They have kept their word in our negotiations. They did shout something about Stovacor and ram their ship into the monster in my space. Yes, for the glory, Big Slow Target says, who is the Klingon player. Also, we note that your promise to build a base has yet to actually happen. It is not unnoticed. Looks like there's tensions in the bedroom there. Eugene, what do you have to do to defeat a mind monster? What are its powers? Dell says, we will build a base when we get there. Okay. Mind monsters are unknown attack, potentially 8 defense, unknown attack, 4 defense when crippled, maybe. Big Slow Target says, special. Monster fires at all ships, bases, planetary defenses, each round, dealing 1 damage per 3 final BIR per 3. What? Dealing 1 damage per 3 final BIR of the attacking ships each. Per 3. Okay, so if the BIR was 7, by example, that would be 2 damage per ship each round, and it's against everything. Interesting. Once monster is defeated, any ships with plus points lose. Lose as in they lose the plus points, or because that would just be normal combat. If you have plus points, unresolved plus points, they disappear. Excuse me. The plus points and all crippled ships are destroyed. If a colony or planet is devastated, it costs the Empire 1d3 RP to a random tech. Monster ignores EW. Your ship is sadly destroyed and eaten. Wow. George Forknell's in the house. Hey, George, what's going on? Julian says, the only question is how much of your territory are they going to get? If I were the Lyran, I'd be asking myself that question. How much am I going to get out of this? So that's an interesting question in the sense of we know that the 3 factions, Carnivon, Lyran, and ISC, are working together, obviously. But how solid is that relationship? Is there competition amongst the 3? Is there total alignment? Like, are they all... For example, if the Borak died tomorrow, would they split up the territory evenly? And seeing as it's an uneven territory, what would that look like? Would it be an equal number of EP? Would it be an equal number of territory, like space, geographically? Again, what would that look like? How would that be distributed? Very interesting things to think about. I don't know. Would there be competition between the Carnivon and the Lyrans and the ISC? Would they even fight each other for it? I don't know. We'll have to see. Is there a wormhole in hydrogen space? Well, kind sir, there does not seem to be a wormhole in hydrogen space at all. There used to be, Jim says. It collapsed It collapsed, a random event, so it collapsed during a random event. Yes, they do seem to come and go and move around from time to time. The one wormhole that was in hydrant space collapsed, Devin says. Very solid. Dogs and cats, very solid, and he will get his share. He will get his share. I love incomplete sentences. That makes no sense. Who will get what share? Are you talking about yourself, Bill? Or are you talking about somebody else? I'm confused. Jim, I do believe that the Borak territory has already been pre-divided. Interesting. Well, if that's the case, who's getting what, and what does it look like? That is news to me, Jim. He says, Lost Muskrat being the Carnivon, biggest player in that 3-part faction. Very interesting to know. Jim says, I thought you said you were having it all, Dave. We'll see. Anywho, so who's going to win? What's winning going to look like? And how is this all going to evolve? The only way to find out is tuning in next week to see how the Borak do or don't survive. If you want to be like Tom, hit the subscribe button, get those notifications, follow us along, and see what's going on. You'll also get to see the YouTube shorts. Granted, I've been a little slow in the shorts lately just because of other things that are going on. But some more YouTube shorts coming, more things to talk about, more highlights and updates about what's going on and how the game is evolving. And then, of course, if you like all things Star Trek and turn-based strategy, then this is the place for you. Hit that subscribe button. Don't be shy. And, of course, get the notifications for next week's live stream when we will be here at Saturday at 11 o'clock, and you can join us then. With that said, thank you very much, everybody. I will see those of you who are part of our coffee and Discord tier. I will see you on the Discord channel once this live stream is done. And if you want to be like them, you know where to go. Coffee.com/New Worlds, and you can join us there for the banter, the chat, the back and forth, and all of it after the live stream is done or anytime during the week. All right. I will see you all later. Ciao for now.